You know what I wish that I could tell every woman who's sitting there just hoping that he'll change, the woman who loves him but can't stand the way he treats her, the woman who wants him to just get better more than she actually wants to leave? I wish that I could just sit across from you, look you in the eyes, and say the things that maybe you already know deep down, but you haven't been able to admit out loud yet. You're not stupid, and you're not choosing this the way that people think that you are. You're just attached to someone who's made your entire life circle around his moods and his trauma, his comfort. You're exhausted, but you feel trapped by your own heart. So I want to walk you through 10 truths that I wish that every woman in your position could hear. And I'm saving 2 of them for last on purpose because they're the ones that really cut through the deepest part of the denial and the hopelessness. Before I go further, here's who you're listening to. I'm Lisa Sonni, a toxic and abusive relationship expert. I'm a certified coach and author, and I'm also a survivor of domestic abuse and assault. I spent almost a decade with a diagnosed narcissistic abuser, and I know what it's like to beg, to bargain, to Google, why is he so angry all the time at 2 a.m., and then hate yourself in the morning for staying. Everything I'm about to say is what I wish so badly that someone had told me, and what I absolutely want my daughter to know one day so that she can walk away from a painful relationship so much easier than I ever did, and earlier. Because here's the reality. You're not broken, but you're trauma bonded, right? You've been trained slowly and carefully to doubt yourself. You're prioritizing him. You've forgiven things that you swore you'd never forgive, things you thought you'd never put up with. You blamed yourself for things that were never your fault, right? You live in this sort of like weird mix of fear and hope and love and confusion, and you tell yourself it's complicated when actually it's painfully simple. He treats you badly, and you're carrying the weight of both of your lives. This isn't love, right? You're in survival mode, but it kind of feels like loyalty, doesn't it? Let's get into truth number 1. The version of him that you're waiting for doesn't exist. Not in the future, not after therapy, not even after if he takes anger management, not once he finally heals his childhood trauma. The man that you're actually waiting for is just one that he performed at the beginning. It's kind of a curated version, right? It's the facade, the illusion that you hear people talk about. He showed you all the right things. He said all the right words. He mirrored your values. He did little things that he's either completely stopped doing or he barely does now. That whole thing, it's the sales pitch. The real him is how he behaves when he's comfortable, not when he's trying to win you. Love bombing isn't real. Truth number 2, change is not his struggle. It's his choice. A lot of women, we feel hopeless, right? Because you think he wants to do better. He just doesn't know how. So you send him videos and you recommend books and you tell him what you need in very clear language. I read The 5 Love Languages, a book I now loathe, right? I was thinking, we're just speaking different languages. Now, as a quick aside, I have a separate video on why I hate that book, but look at where he already shows discipline and control. Maybe he never talks to his boss the way he talks to you. He can hold it together with friends, in public, online. Maybe he wants sex, money. He wants something from you, right? Suddenly he becomes very capable of self-control. That tells you everything. He does know how to behave. He just doesn't feel like he should have to do it for you. And certainly not consistently, right? That's a values problem. That's not a lack of skill. He doesn't care. Truth number 3, your empathy isn't this missing ingredient here, right? You have already tried loving him in every friggin' language known to man. You've been patient and you've explained things calmly. You've forgiven him after he said he'd never do it again. You've given him 10 chances when he barely deserved 1. You've tried to see it from his side. You've changed yourself. You've made yourself smaller. You've told yourself he's had a hard life and he just doesn't know any better. His mom didn't raise him right, or he's trying in his own way. Listen, empathy only changes people who care about the impact that they have on others. And if he doesn't genuinely care that you're in pain, nothing else matters. You loving him harder will not make him suddenly grow a conscience. He tells you that you need to be more supportive and understanding, but it's only to make you stay. Truth number 4, the best he ever treated you was the lie. And I know that hurts. To be fair, that ripped my heart out when I realized that. Your brain probably lives there, right? It replays the early days. We romanticize it. Sometimes it's called euphoric recall, but not always. But it's the way he used to look at you, right? The long conversations, the inside jokes, the way he made you feel like the only woman in the world. You see that man show up sometimes too, even still. So you think he's not gone. He's there. He's in there somewhere. Your brain doesn't remember the nights that you cried yourself to sleep because sometimes that's too painful. It's a kind of defense mechanism basically built into our brains, but it clings to the highs and the romance. That's how trauma bonds work. The highs felt so intense because they were surrounded by low-level fear and definitely anxiety. But that sort of best version, it's not authentic. He baited you with it. If the relationship needs to bleed out just to get back to that version once in a while, that version was never real. You should never have to beg for that version. If it was really him, you would see it. You wouldn't be begging for it. Okay, truth number 5, he knows exactly what he's doing. This one hurts, right? You might desperately want to believe that he's clueless or socially awkward or like, no, my guy, he really doesn't get it, right? He's just bad with communication. No, he sees you flinch. He sees you shut down. He sees you apologize for things you didn't do. He hears you say, that hurt my feelings, and he does it anyway. He sees how easily you crumble when he pulls away or he stonewalls. He knows exactly which buttons to press when he wants you quiet. He knows when to bring up his trauma, right? His stress, his bad childhood, his mental health. He knows that'll get him off. And he knows when he finally gives you just a tiny bit of kindness after days of distance, you'll feel relief, not anger. That pattern doesn't happen by accident. You don't repeat the same harmful, abusive, garbage behavior over and over, and he just didn't notice it. He notices. He doesn't care enough to stop. Truth number 6, if he wanted to change, he would have when he saw he was losing you. I want you to think about the moments that you truly pulled away, right? Maybe you packed a bag. Maybe you stopped engaging in arguments. Maybe you said, I can't do this anymore. What happened then? Because most women in these relationships see the same thing. He suddenly becomes attentive, affectionate, maybe even emotional. Maybe he brings up therapy. Maybe he goes to therapy. He talks about his issues. He shares just enough vulnerability to kind of get you back into people pleasing, into caregiving mode, right? You drop your guard. And then as soon as he feels safe again, the old pattern returns, right? Same old usual crap. It's damage control. He only cared when it impacted him. Do you notice he didn't care when it only impacted you? It took you leaving or threatening to leave or falling apart for him to pretend to be hurt and want to change. That is not a man that's afraid of hurting you. That is actually a man who is very clearly just afraid of losing his access to you. He's afraid of losing control. Truth number 7, you're not actually hoping that he'll change. You're hoping that you weren't wrong about him. Okay, this is where the shame kind of comes in because leaving doesn't just mean losing him. It means losing the story that you built around who he was or who he could become, right? We love his potential, don't we? Ugh. It means admitting I stayed through things that I thought I would never tolerate. It means accepting that you invested time and too much time, love, energy, maybe children, money into someone who was literally never going to rise to your level. But it's weird because you thought he was at your level. He sure seemed that way when you met, right? Letting this go, that's a grief that is so big that saying can feel easier than facing it. So when you say, I just believe that he can change, I think what a lot of people mean is, I don't know who I'd be if I admit that I was wrong. And that is totally human, but it's also not a good reason to keep suffering. Truth number 8, even if he did change, it wouldn't undo the damage already done. This is the part that I feel like nobody really talks about, right? You're waiting for like future him to show up, to be the man you needed 5 years ago. And even if that happened, it wouldn't retroactively make the abuse less abusive. It wouldn't give you back your 20s, your 30s, or all the time you spent doubting yourself, apologizing and managing his mood, walking on eggshells. It wouldn't erase the anxiety, wouldn't change the self-hatred, the confusion, how your body tenses up when you hear this key in the door. Healing requires safety. You can't heal in the same environment that just keeps hurting you, right? A brand new version of him, if that magically appeared tomorrow, which it won't, it can't erase what he already chose to do. Now, I told you that I was saving 2 truths for last because these are the ones that kind of go straight to the core of that hopeless feeling. Here's truth number 9. The version of him that you're waiting for is the one that you created out of love, not evidence. You did not make up a fantasy because you're Lulu. You loved him. Of course, you built the best possible story around him. Of course, you filled in gaps with hope. You thought if he can be that sweet sometimes, it must be who he really is. That was your love truly trying to protect you, trying to make sense of, well, nonsense. But the version in your head is based on a few good moments and a lot of wishing and too much hope. The version in front of you is based on consistent behavior, and you deserve someone whose everyday self actually matches the partner that you imagine in your best moments, not someone that you have to kind of twist your brain and like mentally edit and rewrite just to be able to stay. And here's the last one, truth number 10. You're not waiting for him to change. You're just postponing the moment that you finally choose yourself. That's the real sticking point, right? You already know who he is. You already know what this costs you. You already know your kids, if you have them, that they're learning from this. You know this is not sustainable. The hopelessness that you feel, it's not actually a sign that you should stay and try harder. So many people feel like, I'm just so attached. I love this person so much. It's so hard to leave. That must be evidence that I love them this much, that we're actually meant to be together. It's really not. This is your nervous system waving a giant red flag saying, I can't live like this forever. You're not stuck because you lack strength. I think you're stuck because every time you get close to choosing yourself, you get slammed with fear, guilt, grief, obligation, responsibility. And instead of letting those feelings just move through you, you take them as a sign to stay. And listen, he designed it that way. So this is working exactly according to his plan. If you feel hopeless right now, I really, really get it. We always hope that our relationship is the exception. That's just not the case. Healthy relationships aren't perfect. People argue, but it's not abuse. Abuse is a pattern of ongoing harm. And that's why you're here. That's why you subscribe. That's why you're watching this video, because this is a pattern of abusive behavior and you feel desperate for him to change. The truth is, I hope that I never forget what this feels like, right? This hopeless feeling. Hopeless doesn't mean that there's no way out. Hopeless means that you can't see the way out while you're still standing there inside the relationship surrounded by abuse. Hope right now is tied to him changing, and that's why it feels very dark. When you start shifting your hope away from maybe he'll finally get it towards something like maybe I deserve peace and I can build a life that feels like peace, everything changes. We stop worrying that what if he gets better when you leave to what if leaving is the best decision that you could have ever made for yourself. If this hit you, subscribe, because I'm not here to make this sound prettier than it is. I'm here to name what you're living so that you can stop gaslighting yourself. And if you're at the point where you know something has to give, but you just feel, too scared to move, book a private coaching session with me, because we'll break this down into real concrete steps so that you can take the action that feels right to you. Comment which of these truths were what you needed to hear the most.